Okay, so about this civility leading up to this election. We are now 22 days out. And yes, there's a big pick for president on your ballot, but there's also a bunch of down ticket decisions, including every seat in the Idaho legislature is up for grabs, and a couple of big questions on the ballot. Open primaries initiative, reinforcing Idaho's constitution to make sure no non-citizens vote in Idaho in any election. Right. Some of those may be a bit confusing for a lot of voters out there, especially if English isn't your first language. Joe Paris, though, what about those? You talked about this last week. What about those with like physical or mobility issues?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we actually wanted to focus in on a comment that came in during our show on Friday when we talked about the KTVB Voto Latino special. So Larry writes to the 208, I appreciate your articles with the Spanish voters and how it is important and growing. Could you please do an article on accessible voting for the people with disabilities? How does a blind person vote like you or I? Thank you very much. That's from Larry. So yeah, that's a great question, and there's a great answer for you as well. All Americans get to vote, and there are laws and procedures to make sure that differently abled people get a meaningful vote. Take a look. At the Idaho Secretary of State's office, there is a commitment to all citizens. It says they are ensuring that every eligible citizen can exercise their right to vote with ease and confidence. But citizens that are differently abled may have challenges that most voters don't even consider. Being visually or audibly challenged can make voting hard. Even getting around a polling place can be a challenge for some, but it's not a reason to not vote. Federal and state laws make sure that people with disabilities have the same access to voting as all other Americans. Here's a look at part of Idaho's law. For example, polling places need to be accessible for all people, and if a person can't get in to access their ballot, there is a provision, for example, to be handed a ballot on the curb, for example, under supervision, of course. There are also special tools that each polling location must have, like assistive technologies. VoteIdaho.gov explains that voters can get audio transcriptions of a ballot. There are some Braille options, access and ability to enlarge or zoom in on your ballot text, adjust the contrast to help improve some visual cues, and there are adaptations for marking a ballot if pen to paper is hard for a person to use. It's important to note, if you make a mistake, you can change your selections, or you can always request a new ballot from a poll worker and they'll spoil your other one. For an in-depth look at whatever you may have questions about, Disability Rights Idaho has this fantastic voter guide. You can find that and more information at drivote.org. And here's a really big piece of advice, whether you're differently abled or not. If you need assistance in the voting booth, you're actually allowed to bring someone with you to assist in the voting process. You can also always ask for help from an election worker. They're not going to tell you who to vote for, but they can help answer ballot-related questions. For example, also, if you're visually impaired and you would like someone to come with you and just read you the ballot, they can help you do that as well. And also, as we touched on, Brian, if for some reason pen and paper is difficult for you, they have different ways that you can cast your vote. Because everyone gets to vote. Everyone's vote is worth the same.
Yep, voting should be easy. All right, thank you very much, Joe.